Hi, this is Judy from Fox Cities Quilt Company, and this is Sunday from the Sewing Room. So today I want to talk to you about a project that I am doing, and I've had to do some fussy cutting, and I want to tell you how I prepare and how I do fussy cutting. So the quilt that I'm working on is, and you've seen us talk about it, it is the Tula Pink Spool for Love quilt kit. It came in a kit. We got all of these fabrics. They're all just absolutely gorgeous. You can see them here. But in the kit, they are telling you for some of the spools that we're making that they need to be fussy cut. And I wanted to show you what I'm talking about. So I have one block done. This is one of them, and this is the spool. This one did not have to be fussy cut, but it is directional because you can see the tape measure in here is directional. So this is what the spools are going to look like. So that's the block. But there's a couple of fabrics in different colorways that they're telling you to fussy cut. One is the little sewing machines. And this is one of the colorways of the sewing machines, and I did fussy cut this. And the other one is the scissors. I fussy cut this one as well. I wanted my eyes to kind of be in the center, so that's how I fussy cut this. And let me tell you how I decided how I wanted to do that. So the first thing I did was, of course, I read the directions, and it said that each of these blocks is 4.5 by 8.5. So that's easy to remember what the half part will be. So then I did two things. I took my very favorite tool in my sewing room, which is my painter's tape, and I took my 12.5-inch square ruler, and I just counted out 4.5 by 8.5, and I just taped off a window so that I could see what that would look like when I fussy cut it. So let me show you how I did this. So here is another piece that I have to fussy cut yet. And for this one, I definitely want that sewing machine to be in the center. Let me go this way. I definitely want that sewing machine to be in the center of my 4.5 by 8.5. So what I do is I just kind of make a window and see how that looks. I have this upside down. Let me turn it back over to see how that looks. So as I can see here, if I go up 1, 2, 3, 4.25 would be about halfway. So that would be about in the middle for the sewing machine. So that, so you can kind of eyeball it there. And then I noticed that I only have a 1/4 inch on this side, but I have like a 1/2 inch on this side. So maybe I want to go 3/8 because I want to make sure that I don't cut off the end of that sewing machine in that 1/4 inch seam line. So you're going to be able to see your 1/4 inch seam line. So then I can also see, I thought that maybe the heart is the center of the sewing machine. Let me pull that down so you can see that heart that's in the center there. But it's really not. So, because if I were to do 4.25 this way, 1, 2, 3, or I'm sorry, 2.25, which is half of my 4.5 in the middle, then I'm going to cut off the end of that sewing machine. So that's why I really want to move this over so that the end of that sewing machine is in my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I want to make sure that I kind of like this vine. I think it's really pretty. I like the end of the vine down here. But I think that I want to move this up just a little bit more to get more of this vine and make sure that the sewing machine is more in the center. So I kind of like the way that this looks. So I feel like the ends of the sewing machine are center in my frame that I've made. I feel like I have the foot here. Here's the little plug. I kind of like how this looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually count up, and I'll write right on my painter's tape where my marks should be. So I'm going to start with this edge here because I know that this is 2.5 inches down is the top of the sewing machine. So I'll write right on here, top of machine. is at 2.5 inches. And that way, each and every time that I cut one of these sewing machines, I know that the top of my machine will be at 2.5 inches. So that is my reference point. So I have the machine down. The next one that I'm going to do is I'm going to do the scissors. So in this one, I did like the scissors part, but then I did most of them with the scissors. But when I looked at this piece of fabric, I really liked this spool in the center. So I don't really always have to have the same things. It's okay to think outside of and do something else. So I really wanted the spool. I have a lot of the scissors, and I think the scissors are very cool. And let me show you how I lined up the scissors. I kind of wanted the eyes to be in the middle, and I wanted, as you can see in here in the fabric, these are needles and it's thread going through the needles. So I really wanted the scissors, the eyes of the scissors, to be about in the center. So that means I have to go 4¼ inches down to make those in the center. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4.5. So I need to bring it down a little bit to 4¼ and then that would have the eyes in the center. So you can write down a reference point here. So for this reference point, it seems to me that the bottom of the scissors would be my reference point, and that would be at 1 inch. So if the scissors were going to be centered in fussy cut, I would put bottom of scissors at 1 inch. And then I know for sure each and every time if I write right on my painter's tape. Now I want to do the spool. So I'm going to do something completely different. I'm going to do, I'm not doing what they said in the pattern. I just would really like that spool to be center. So I'm going to kind of measure that spool first. And I see that that spool is about 1.5 inches tall. But I really don't really care too much about how tall it is. I just really want a good focal point with it. And down here, I can see that my eyes are still in the picture, and I think those are pretty cool. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit more so that I can get all of the eyes in there and make sure that I'm not cutting those off with my seam allowance. So here's my 1/4 inch right here. So if I bring that down even just a little bit more, then I'm not going to cut those eyes off in the 1/4 inch seam allowance. As a matter of fact, the handle of my scissors are at the very bottom. So then to find the center, I think that this vine coming out of the spool is actually the center. So I'm going to mark that at 1, 2, this is 1, 2 1/4 inches right there. So I'm going to write center of vine is 2 1/4 inches. So that's how I'm going to mark it. And then I may have to do another reference point and call the bottom of handles. So bottom of handles would be 0. So I'm going to line my ruler up right with the bottom of those handles. I like this look because I'm getting a couple of different things in this particular fussy cut that I didn't get with the scissors. So if you can see here, there's a couple of sets of hands here. I'm getting the spool that I didn't get in the fussy cut, and I'm also getting these set of hands here. So use some tape and use some painter's tape as your frame to make any fussy cuts that you want. The painter's tape is great. You can just take it right off your ruler. It doesn't leave any sticky residue. And you have kind of a frame to do your fussy cutting. So that's my tip on fussy cutting. And if you have any questions, give us a call at the shop. And we have this kit available. It's so beautiful. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.